What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with your extra cheese. It's Friday. It's almost time to get the hell out of here and start the weekend. But I couldn't leave without jumping on and saying Brett Favre is the absolute man. That's it. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'm kidding, of course. Did post a bunch of Favre clips earlier today. Hold on a second. Try that bad boy there for a second. And, Brett's the man. I love him. And I wanted to have people share in the glory that is Brett Favre. Evan, what's up, buddy? Thanks for jumping on. You and 40 other lonely souls on a Friday afternoon. It's gorgeous outside. I'm in here in the studio. God knows why. Majority of Live X is on the road on their way to California, but I'm here holding it down with you fine folks. Mobile, Alabama, what's going on? Did you read Matt Waldman's? No, I haven't saved to read. The QB to Save the Universe, Football Guys, which, by the way, if you don't read Football Guys with regularity, I highly recommend them. Just fantastic stuff all around, not just fantasy either. Is Mitchell Trubisky better than Aaron Rodgers? I would refer you, sir, to the extra cheese video from yesterday. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say about that. Nathan just took a walk, ladies and gentlemen. Very nice. I don't care who Favre supports Stewart. I just care about what he did on the football field. And what he did there was fucking fantastic. Not everything has to be seen through a political lens. I know. Blew your mind right there, didn't I? 90 days to game one. Should be BJ Raji Day. I'm down with that. It's the site of his greatest accomplishment. And, of course, I'm not talking about an interception for a touchdown. I'm talking about the dance. What do I make of the Wentz contract? Garrett, I think it makes a world of sense if you're the Eagles. And it's interesting to look at the numbers, and all of a sudden now he's the highest paid quarterback after Russell Wilson was the highest paid quarterback. And before that, it was Aaron Rodgers as the highest paid quarterback. And pretty soon it'll probably be Jared Goff or Dak Prescott as the highest paid quarterback. I think if you're the Eagles, you want to get out ahead of it. And I think I saw some report, I don't remember who it was, saying that Wentz was comfortable signing now, knowing that a few years down the line, someone will, if not a few people, will eclipse him money-wise. And look, I understand you can quibble with what you think about the idea that quarterbacks make such a high percentage of the cap, etc. But if you're a team that has a quarterback as talented as Wentz, yes, absolutely you want to lock him up sooner rather than later. With the salary cap continuing to rise each and every offseason, those numbers will only rise, and you are really handicapped unless you have a quarterback. And, flipping it back to Rodgers, I know there was some sentiment that, the Packers didn't need to sign him. They had all the leverage, quote unquote. But I think the more these years go on, the more that the Rodgers contract makes a world of sense for this very reason. And when it comes to Wentz, look, I've seen so much about he doesn't even won a playoff game or some such nonsense. And look, first of all, we all know, anyone who visits me with regularity knows that wins and losses aren't a QB stat, first of all. And second of all, you're not paying a guy that money for what he has done for you in the past. You are paying for what you expect him and project him to do in the future. And clearly, the Eagles expect him to continue to get better, which is a scary proposition for the rest of the NFC and the NFL. Wentz is insanely talented, and I believe, my hunch, is that he's only scratched the surface of his potential. I think it makes a world of sense for the Eagles to lock him up. How many carries do you think Aaron Jones should get a game? Good question, Jimmy. Carries, I'd hover around 14, 15, somewhere around there. I think, a decent size workload, but I would hesitate to put him in the 20 carry range. It just feels like a lot. That's just first blush. Any word on the Jones situation? I believe you mean Josh Jones, Daniel, and nope, nothing yet. They just had their final OTA practice, I believe, yesterday. The first minicamp will be 3 days away for the minicamp practices, and that's when we will know if the rubber is meeting the road as far as Josh Jones showing up, because that is when it is mandatory. Mike Tyson plays for the Packers. That is correct. He is a safety. not to be confused with the former heavyweight champion of the world. How was Wentz the highest paid when Prescott actually played a whole season? Devin, again, it's not about what you did. It's about what you plan on the guy to do, what you project him to do. Also, you got to have a quarterback. And especially after allowing Foles to leave, the Eagles had to lock him up. Has Sternberger signed? Not yet. But as I keep saying, I don't even care until it's training camp. Is Tyson a legitimate option for safety, or he's just there for return possibilities? Ryan, I think the longer Josh Jones is out, the more of a chance he has to state his case. He's got some experience, and the position is bereft, or has been bereft of talent. There's certainly a wide open spot there as far as depth goes. So if he can turn some heads in practices, yeah, I think he's got a legitimate shot. Heard about Nascar formation on defense? David, yes, I think Zach wrote up the idea of the return, quote unquote, of the Nascar personnel grouping, which is really just a way of saying the Packers are kind of, experimenting with having 4 linebackers on the field in pass rushing situations. That's what the Nascar thing, that's what Dom Capers called it back in the day. But yeah, I think it's exciting to have a package that has a bunch of really flexible / athletic guys that can work up and down the formation, and you can kind of deploy them anywhere, whether that's Gary, Fackrell, Smith, what have you. That'll be interesting to see how much of that you see, preseason, but let alone during the regular season. Did we draft the right tight end? Dan, it's way too early to tell. Let's let the kid catch a few balls in training camp and maybe make a few plays in preseason, and then we can talk about it. Raven Green or Tony Brown on playing time this year? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that question, but especially since they play different positions. But I think there's probably more opportunity for Raven Green, but I do like Tony Brown's chances of being in the rotation. How much value would Mike Daniels generate on the trade market? Ernesto, I would doubt much since he's coming off of an injury, but you never know. But the fact that he's going into the last year of his contract doesn't help either. I would be very surprised if the Packers were shopping him at all. Do we need more of a power style running back? Dan, I don't think so. I mean, they got Jamal Williams. That kid will run over anybody. I know what you mean as far as maybe a bigger guy, but I think Jamal definitely fits the bill if you want to pound the football and kill the clock at the end of a game. Jamal will get you through that. Who do you think will be this year's Fackrell? Well, if I knew that, I'd go to Vegas. Let's see. Rodgers is better than both Favre and Starr. T to INT ratio is by far the most important QB stat. Changed my mind. Thomas, I'll change your mind by saying liberalized passing rules. Bart Starr puts both of those guys to shame. Give me a break. Are we stuck with Jimmy Graham? What's the cap hit if we cut him? Well, they paid the bonus at the beginning of the league year back in March, so I'd be very surprised if they let him go now. Stuck with him? I think they like him. I don't think it's a question of being stuck. If they were going to move on, they would have done it already. Patrick, I appreciate that. Who are your top 3 tight ends for the 2019 Packers? Until I see otherwise, until I get there to training camp practices and maybe someone makes a move, you got to think it's Graham, Lewis, and Tanya. And then Sternberger probably gets into the rotation eventually and takes over that spot for Tanya. But a lot to play out yet. We'll see. By the way, if you're looking for tickets to a Packers game, maybe see some of these guys on the field live and in person, there's only one place you really need to go, and that's Ticket King. You can find them at cheeseheadtv.com. About halfway down the page, there's a link right to Ticket King. They've been around since 1992, right when the Packers got good again. They're there to handle all your ticket needs, either home or away. Doesn't matter. There is no other place you need to go. You want to go to a Packers game, you want to see the glory that is the green and gold, Ticket King. It's got you covered. Burks much improved this year? I don't know about much improved, Sly, but you got to hope for some improvement, right? They used a pretty significant pick on the kid, and I like the initial stuff coming out of minicamp or OTAs is very promising and encouraging, but doesn't mean a whole lot. Let's see what happens when pads come on and it's time to avoid and or shed some blocks. More sacks, Gary or Sackrell? Good question. I'll probably go with Fackrell, but that doesn't mean that Gary won't be involved. Jamal Williams' pass blocking is underrated sometimes. I don't know about that, Sebastian. I think that's the thing that most people point to as to why he gets so much playing time. Or at least he used to in McCarthy's system. Who knows what happens with LaFleur in town now. But, perhaps in some circles, but certainly online, the Twitter sphere, etc., I think most people recognize that is probably his number one attribute. And that's not to take away from his rushing or his receiving ability, but his ability to keep Aaron Rodgers clean is number one. Kiki's potential impact as a rookie. Nate, I really like the kid. I said, I believe a couple days ago, I know people both in the building and around the league who thought he should have or would have been drafted a couple rounds earlier. They were very surprised to see him fall as far as he did. Look, it's going to be a tough rotation to crack. But as the year goes on, I think you'll see him on the field more and more. I don't think he's going to have a ton of opportunity, especially early. But I do think you're going to see flashes and you're going to see the potential sooner rather than later. Just bought my tickets at Ticket King. Third time at Lambeau. Packers versus the Lions. Steven, wise decision. Enjoy the game. Always a great time at Lambeau Field. No doubt about it. What else besides catching what Rodgers throws to you makes Rodgers trust the wide receiver? Kevin, that's a really good question. Essentially, the biggest thing, the number one thing, and he has talked about this several times, is showing that you've done the work and learn from your mistakes. Learning from your mistakes is really big for Aaron. It's one thing if you go out there either in a practice or even in a game and make a mistake and you come back to Aaron, you guys talk about it, etc. You go back out there, you best not make that mistake again. Because if you do, that is when the trust starts to erode for Rodgers. And we've seen it, whether it's with Jeff Janis, with guys, throughout the years. Guys are going to get beat. Guys are going to get covered. That's going to happen. That's the game of football. And Rodgers talks about it all the time. Sometimes, the physical nature of the game, those things happen. But you got to control what you can control, and you got to learn from your mistakes. And if you don't, you're going to have a short leash, and you're not going to have the trust of the quarterback. That's, to me, from what I can gather, and obviously I can't speak for Rodgers, but from observing him year in and year out and watching every game he's played, every throw he's made, that seems to be the number one thing, is guys who do the work, make the adjustments, read the field the way he does because they're in the playbook, because they know the offense. And if they do make mistakes, because that is inevitable, that will happen, especially early on in your career, if and when that happens, you learn from it and you correct it and you do not make the same mistake again. That, to me, the way I read it, and we saw that play out with Geronimo Allison his rookie year as an undrafted free agent. We saw how early in camp, even when he did make mistakes, he came back, didn't make those mistakes again, continued to be in the right spot at the right time, and Rodgers earned Rodgers' trust. We kind of saw it with Kumaro too. Those are the things that you can do that are in your control that'll make Rodgers trust you as a wide receiver. Hello from the International Space Station. Jim, another one, I believe. Bart Starr is the greatest QB ever in the NFL, just saying. Aaron, I think he's one of the greatest. I've always maintained that Unitas was the greatest, but Starr is definitely up there. No question about it. Hi, Nags. Have a good weekend. Uncultured Barbarian, thank you. You yourself have a very good weekend. I'm going to take one or two more, and then I'm going to have to start my weekend. Who do you think is better at beating press, Devontae Adams or Chad Johnson in his prime? Woo! Man, that's a tough one. Chad was a technician. I think Chad was the most amazing route runner, but I'd probably give the nod to Devontae after this last season. But Chad, they're neck and neck, no doubt about it. Do you think Rodgers should take a page from Favre and get into the sexting game? I'm going to have to advise him against that. But, hey, man, whatever gets you going, whatever makes you great. What you do off the field, not really my concern. Jones once said it takes at least 2 years to learn McCarthy's system. Can you see our young wide receivers taking huge year 2 jumps in a simpler system? Well, Patrick, you're assuming it's simpler. They're going to take jumps regardless, or not take them, as the case may be. Much more, I mean, the routes you run, the concepts that are input into the playbook, those kind of things, those are pretty universal across the NFL. Now, how you utilize them as a play caller and or play designer / scheme designer, that's where there may be some kind of an adjustment. But ultimately, you're still wanting these guys to learn how to use the stem of their routes, use the release up front, how to use hand fighting to their advantage, etc. All those little things that can help them make that jump. Those are very much in their control and don't have a whole lot to do with the offense that they're running in. All right, buddy. I said 15 minutes. It's now 16. I got to jump. Thanks so much, everybody. I know it's short, but hell, it's Friday. It's beautiful out. And I want to get out there. I hope you guys do too. Make sure you're checking out cheeseheadtv.com for all the latest on the Packers. It's, heading into we're almost there. We're almost in that really long slog of the part of the offseason when I'm going to have to kick Grossi's butt in Madden. But until then, we got minicamp coming up next week. Make sure you're checking Cheesehead TV for all of that. Make sure you like and subscribe and share either here on YouTube or on our Facebook page. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/CheeseheadTV. $5 a month supports everything we do at Cheesehead TV. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys soon.